Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's special session on Beyond Tofu, how to add plant-based proteins to your healthy diet, featuring Chef Bill Nolan. My name is Lindsay Colbert. I am the Executive Director of the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy. As many of you know, we like to offer educational sessions on a regular monthly basis, and this one will look a little bit different from our past sessions, and I'm really excited for it. But before we begin, just a bit of housekeeping. Yes, we are recording the session. The recording will be emailed to you tomorrow, and it will also be uploaded on our website. There's also a handout that's accompanying today's presentation. You can find that in the docking panel within this platform under handouts. If for any reason you're not seeing this handout or having difficulties download it, please don't worry. We will be sure to get it posted on our website tomorrow so that you can review it later along with the recording. We will be doing a question and answer session at the end of this session. So if you have any questions that arise during the presentation, please just type them into the questions box on the docking panel. You can also use this questions box to let us know of any technical difficulties you might be experiencing, and we will try our best to troubleshoot them with you right on the spot. And now I'm pleased to introduce our guest speaker, Chef Bill Nolan. Chef Nolan is a professionally trained chef and current owner of Nolan Hospitality, a food-focused company based in Darien, Illinois. Bill has over 20 years of experience in the restaurant and education industries and is very passionate about food and health. Bill believes in the diet, lifestyle, health connection and loves to share his knowledge with others through writing, classes, and presentations. We're so honored here at the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy that he has volunteered his time today to speak to all of us and teach us as much as he can in the short period of time that we have together. So, without further ado, I'm pleased to welcome Chef Bill Nolan. Bill, when you're able, why don't you try to join us?
Okay, here we go. Thank you, Lindsay, so much for the introduction. I am very pleased to be here with you all today. And I want to give you a little bit of an overview of what we're going to talk about today, Beyond Tofu, plant-based proteins, why I think it's important. I'm coming to you live from my home kitchen today in Darien, suburban Chicago. And I do demos from here for one of the organizations I work for. And of course, now I'm starting, hopefully this will be the first of many for the foundation here that we'll do. Thanks to, I guess, people being forced to work from home and work remotely over the last 2 years, there is a good side that came out of the pandemic, and we've gotten new skills, I guess, if you will, and we're able to do things. And believe it or not, we can teach people how to cook remotely too. So we are going to be, or we are me here. So bear with me. This is not a Food Network production. I have 3 cameras, but one of me, and there's nobody else here. So I've got it set up that you'll be able to see the cooking going on. It's something I've been working on for a few weeks now with one of the organizations that I do work for, which is Ascension Health. I teach classes for their lifestyle management program. And so we started doing classes with them. And so I was talking to Nancy at the foundation and said, you know, we should try to do this because we talked about doing a webinar. So hopefully this will be something that'll be enjoyable for you today, and most importantly, educational. As Lindsay said, I've been in the business for over 20 years, now about 25 years, a lot of it in education. I've taught at the community college level, I've taught at the high school level, I've taught adults, I've taught little kids. So it's something that I really, when I went to culinary school back in the 90s, I never really saw myself as an educator. I really wanted to just learn about food, become a chef. I became a chef, but as I got older, I found I more enjoyed the educational side. So that is why I'm here. I'm excited to share with you plant-based proteins. As Lindsay said, well, I'll answer the questions at the end that you're going to be typing in. So we're going to be talking today, why do we want to include these in our diet? For variety. You know, variety is important in our diets. I am not a dietitian. I am not a nutritionist, but I have a keen interest in it. And through my work with Ascension Health, I work with a lot of dietitians there. So, you know, we'll talk today about plant-based proteins, and I'm going to give you a few examples, and then we're going to key on one that I'll actually cook with. I have 3 cameras, as I said, set up. One will be a close-up of my cutting board down here that will be it is on my counter. I've got another one over here on my cooktop. I've moved the cooktop over to my countertop here on my island so that I don't have to run back and forth to my stove, because that would be a little bit cumbersome. So we'll talk about that too. And the other note too, before I jump straight into this, is I like to, in my lessons and when I teach, I like to interject small pieces of information just about cooking and food in general. It might be on equipment, it might be whatever pops into my head, I'm going to share with you. Some of it I have planned out, some of it might just be something that just hits me as we're talking, or as I'm talking, and I'll share with you. So I think it's important that, you know, we keep the whole picture of food in mind when we talk about this. So plant-based proteins, beyond tofu. Tofu is probably the most recognizable plant-based protein that people are eating out there. It's the most accessible, I think, although the other ones are becoming accessible too. And tofu is soybean curd. You know, it comes in different degrees of firmness. It comes very firm, it comes loose. As far as cooking it, I like to roast it. Is probably my favorite way to cook it. I like to put it on a parchment, piece of parchment paper on a cookie sheet. We roast it at about 375 degrees, but I like to marinate it first. I'm a huge favor of Asian flavors. I love Asian flavors. I do a lot of Asian cooking. So I like soy sauce. I like sesame oil. I like gochujang, which is a Korean red paste that gives it a little bit of heat. So there's different ways you can add flavor to tofu, as well as some of the other items I'm going to be talking about in cooking with today. So keep in mind that this is something that is very fluid, and I don't mean fluid by runny. I mean, you can change up what I'm going to be talking to you about today to fit your needs. These plant-based proteins, the majority of them, will acquire the taste of what they're being cooked with as far as spices or flavorings. They don't really have a flavor of their own, which makes it kind of exciting and fun to play with as we go through cooking, and the best part, eating. So tofu we talked about. Talk about the second one. I'm going to talk about 4 of them here, and then we're going to get into the focus of it, which is tempeh. The second one I want to talk about briefly is seitan. Seitan is basically, it's also known as wheat meat. It is basically dough with the starch removed. The starch has been rinsed out of it, and it is formed into different shapes. I see seitan chicken wings. I see seitan cut into different forms or shapes, and it's very, very popular, very high in protein, which is what we're looking for. You know, when you're going to be, if you're going to be going to a partially meatless diet or moving away from meat, I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan, but I like to have meatless meals once in a while. You need to replace those nutrients. So we're replacing the protein with some things that are in the plant-based. After seitan, we'll talk about tempeh, which is the focus of the cooking today in tempeh and what it is. I'll circle back to tempeh, but before I circle back to that, I want to cover the last 2 plant-based proteins that you see in the market today. And those are relatively new to the market, and those are the products Impossible Meats and Beyond Burger. And so the difference with those 2 products is they are produced, those were created to mimic the taste of meat. Whereas tofu and tempeh, seitan weren't really created to mimic the taste of meat. They get the taste of what they're cooked with, as I said earlier. So being that they're made to mimic the taste of meat, they're a little bit more of a processed food. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your selections and shopping. Now, I know vegetarians and vegans that swear by it because they still get a craving for that cheeseburger, you know. Who doesn't like a cheeseburger, right? So they get a craving for that cheeseburger. What can they eat that will taste the closest thing to that meat patty? So that is something that you can definitely try and try different ones as you're going along, different forms of them as you go along. and see which one you like the most. So that brings us to tempeh. Tempeh is another soy product. Okay, this is a packaging that it comes in, and I'll give you the nutritionals on this as well. This is Light Life tempeh, and it is in a cake form. Okay, so you can see it's kind of pliable here. I'm going to open it up, and we're going to actually cook with this product right here. But there's reasons I really like tempeh. Number one, it's very versatile. You can grill this. You can steam it and then roast it. You can stir fry it. You can saute it. You can do whatever you want to it. Some people like to steam it before they do anything to it because that kind of loosens up the pores in the soy cake, if you will. But it's very versatile. Second, I love the nutritionals in this. The nutritionals are very, very good. This package is about $3.50. I get this at Whole Foods. I don't do all my shopping at Whole Foods because it's expensive and great products. I wish I could buy everything at Whole Foods, but I can't. So this is Whole Foods, about $3.50. You can also order it through Amazon, Whole Foods, Amazon. But some of the regular grocery stores will have it as well. This is an 8-ounce package, so it is 3 servings for $3.50. Not too bad, but the nutritionals are what really gets you on this. This per serving, which is about a 3-ounce serving, a little bit less, has 6 grams of fiber, which is 21% of your RDA, 18 grams of protein, which is really fantastic for protein. We're replacing that meat, and that's 36% of your RDA. Only 12 grams of carbs, if you're watching your carbs, 4% of your RDA, and 4.5 grams of total fat, which is 6% of your RDA. 0 sugars, okay, 0 sugars. So it is really versatile, and what we're going to do today with this is we are going to make tempeh tacos. Tempeh tacos, this is a recipe that I got from the New York Times cooking section where I love their recipes. Some recipes as a chef I make up myself, some I get from other sources, and I adapt them. I've adapted this one a little bit for us today. And so what I want to do, and there's where I'm going to switch cameras for you. Hold on 1 second. Okay, I want to switch cameras for you here and go to my countertop camera. Okay, I want to go to my countertop camera. Again, this is the product right here. We've got my cutting board. You can see again, if you move in close, those little tiny soybeans that are in there. Now what I want to do, this is vacuum sealed. So I just want to open it up and peel it back. What we're going to do with this today is we're going to chop it so that it has the consistency of ground meat. Because really, it's going to be a taco filling, right? So it's going to look, when it's cooked, a lot like ground chicken, which I like to eat a lot of. There's 2 layers of the packaging here. So we need to be sure that we get both layers off. Okay, so we have both layers off. This is the cake. If you want to go ahead and do it, again, as a whole piece, you could throw that on the grill. But what I'm going to do today, get this out of the way, is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chop this up into smaller pieces, but then I'm going to throw it into my food processor just to get it down into smaller pieces that is good to saute. If you don't have a food processor, no problem. Just get a knife. If you have a cleaver like this, they work great. If you have a knife like this, that will work as well. Any kind of knife that you have will work fine. I'm just going to cut it up into smaller pieces so that it's not fighting the blade in the food processor, it isn't fighting the whole thing. I'm going to take it, put it in my bowl. We can see that we cut it up into pieces about like this. Put it into my bowl. And then I'm going to flip back to my my other camera here so that we can get a bigger picture, if you will. Okay, so I'm back on the bigger camera, and I'm going to walk over here to my food processor. And I'm just going to pulse this a couple of times. I apologize, this wasn't right under the camera, but I only had so much room on my countertop, so a little bit of a loud noise. And there we have it. And I'll show you what this looks like up close. A lot faster than doing this on with just a knife. But again, if you don't have one, don't worry about that because it's not that big of a deal. You could just you could chop it up with your knife or whatever you want to use in that way. So this is what it looks like. Kind of the consistency of ground chicken, if you will. You can kind of see up close here. Okay, so we'll set this off to the side for a minute. And while I've got my camera down here, I want to talk about the recipe. As Lindsay said, there is a handout with this, which is actually the recipe for these tempeh tacos. So I want to talk about that just for a minute here. One of the things that you'll notice today is I used one package of tempeh for this demo. The recipe calls for 2, so I just cut it in half because I don't need that much of this at home. So let's take a look at our ingredients. Essentially, it's just a matter of some spices, a little bit of tomato product. In the recipe, it calls for tomato paste. I used tomato sauce because I want to talk about the versatility of swapping out ingredients. And then we're going to go ahead and saute it. I'm going to turn my cooktop on. Got a little bit of a fan in the background, so I'll speak up. I'm using an induction cooker over here, which I'll speak to in a minute, because I think it's a fun tool to kind of fill you in about. We've got, in my ingredients, I have cumin, I have chili pepper, smoked paprika, a pinch of cayenne pepper, which I added as an add-on that is not in the recipe, tomato sauce, and nutritional yeast. If you're not used to nutritional yeast or haven't used it, nutritional yeast is yeast that is no longer alive. It is chock full of B vitamins, very nutritious. It is used by a lot of vegans and vegetarians in place of Parmesan cheese. So the other ingredient that I have here, I have half of a chopped onion, which I already have chopped up. One of the things, these are just my little cooking tips as we go along. One of the things that I like to do when I'm cooking is I like to be prepared once I start cooking on the cooktop. If I'm prepared, it's going to go much smoother. That's why I have all my ingredients measured out. It drives my wife crazy because I've got all these little dishes. If I'm doing cooking just for myself and not a demo, I'm not going to do all these little dishes. I'm going to just put them in a bowl. And now that we have these all measured out, what I want to do is I want to combine them in a larger bowl, just so that when we cook, I'll combine them all with the exception of the tomato paste. When we cook, I want to make sure that those spices are blended well. All those spices will be blended very well. And so we have them in there. You can see the nutritional yeast, which is a lighter color. Let's put this over here. We've got our onions. We have our tempeh. We have our spices, and we're ready to cook. I've turned on my cooktop on my infrared, or I'm sorry, my cooker over here. And so I'm going to use a little bit of avocado oil. Avocado oil, if you haven't cooked with it, I like to cook with it because it is got a 500-degree smoke point. Smoke point is the temperature at which oils will break down and begin to smoke. And so we want something that will take a high heat. It's also flavor neutral. Even though you see the picture of the avocado on the label, it does not taste like avocado. So it is very, very good to use for cooking. It will not change the flavor of the food at all. So that said, let's switch over to my cooktop camera and my stainless pan. I'm cooking in a stainless pan today. I've got the induction cooker going. What is an induction cooker? This is it. It is basically a high-tech hot plate. Induction cooking is extremely fast. It cooks twice as fast as other methods of heat, whether it be gas or electric. It's because heat is transferred from the cooker through magnets. And you have to use a pan, a metal pan, either stainless steel or cast iron, that will interact with that, and it's magnetic heating. And that's why it can cook so fast and be ready to go in no time. You can also control the heat a little bit more when you do this. Okay, so I'm getting shimmering already in this, you see. A little bit of a, and I'll probably add a little bit more, a little bit of the tip here. And here's one of the tips that I like to throw in. When we are talking about sauteing, always get your pan hot first, then add your fat or oil, whatever you're cooking with. Once the oil is hot, then we add our ingredients. We do this for the reason that we don't want it to be greasy. If that oil is not hot, when I go to throw my ingredients in, what is going to happen is it is going to soak up, my onions will soak up the oil, my tempeh will soak up the oil, and I won't have anything there but a bunch of grease. So that is not what I want. I could tell by looking at it, it's shimmering. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my ingredients now. You got a nice sizzle. That's a sure sign that it is hot enough. I've got my onions. I've got my tempeh. I'm going to combine, I'm going to kind of stir those around a little bit just to kind of get them going. Got a couple of bigger chunks in there, but that's okay. Now I'm going to add my tomato sauce. This recipe called for, I think, 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. Since I'm using tomato sauce, you want to go on a ratio of 1 to 3 because tomato paste is concentrated. So I've added about a half a cup, which is around 9 tablespoons of tomato sauce. So we're getting a little bit of the red color in here. That's nice. Now I'm going to add my spices, and I want to kind of sprinkle those around to distribute those evenly. And I can already tell that I'm going to need a little bit more moisture. I got to tell you, this is such a great topping to make. I'm going to show you, I'll pull out of my freezer, or not topping, filling, I should say. I'm going to pull out of my freezer a package of this that I froze the last time I did a demo, or the last time I made it for the house, because I had made too much. I'm going to add a little water to this. It's nice to be in my own kitchen where I know everything is. I know where it's at. Okay, I've got a little bit of water. I'm going to crank up the heat a little bit, which will be almost immediate. And I'm going to go ahead and let that cook a little bit. Okay, let's let that cook and we'll come back and revisit it. I'm going to switch cameras again. Okay. We'll come back and revisit that. I want to show you, this is what tempeh looks like when it's cooked and frozen. I'm a huge believer in vacuum sealed bags for food in the kitchen. I do something called sous vide cooking, which is cooking in bags like this at a precise temperature, which is a lot of fun to do. It's a little geeky, but it's exact temperature cooking. And I buy these bags for that and the food sealer. but the food will keep a lot longer in the freezer when you use these bags. But if you just want to save your leftovers, and it's like this tempeh taco filling, all you've got to do is thaw that out and heat it up, and you've got dinner right there, and it's already cooked. So that is a nice one to have. I'm going to go over here and take a look at this and see how we're doing. We got a lot of bubbling that's going on, which is good. It's cooking down. What I want to do, if you've ever seen anything, a recipe that says reduce it, okay? We want to reduce it. We want to reduce the amount of liquid in it, is what we want to do, to get it a little bit drier. I switched back over. You can see we've got a nice sizzle going on here, a nice simmer. And I think that's fine the way it is right now. I'm going to let it cook a little bit further before we get ready to just simply plate this. While that is finishing up, we'll just give it about 2 more minutes. And while that is finishing up, I want to switch back my camera to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart, because I have you here, you're a captive audience right now, and I always talk about food safety. When I was a chef instructor at Elgin Community College, I taught food safety as well as intro to culinary arts. And food safety is very important for several reasons. Number one, we don't want to get anybody sick eating our food. So I want to talk just for a minute about food thermometers and how important it is to take temperature of food as you're cooking them, as you're cooking the food. This is the most economical option. This is just a little bimetallic. That's the type of thermometer it is. Analog stem thermometer, instant read, does not stay in the product in the oven. You just stick this in, it will take the immediate temperature. You take it back out, wash it, and put it in here in the holder. About $5 to $7 for those. Second, this is a remote thermometer that has a cable that plugs into it. This is good for in the oven if you're doing that turkey or roast. And so it's something that you can set this on the counter and monitor it from outside the oven. We want to make sure that we cook food to the proper internal temperatures. For example, if I'm doing that roast chicken or roast turkey, 165 degrees to be food safe. That's also when it's at its optimum eating quality. The last example I'll give you, this is another instant read. This is my pride and joy thermometer. I love it. It's made by a company called Thermoworks. It's got a digital display. It will tell you that my temperature in the kitchen here is 72 degrees right now. It will shut off when you close it back up. It's got a protective, turn this down. It's got a protective silicone cover on it. So do me a favor, when you cook, if you don't have a food thermometer, especially when you're using those, you're cooking with meat proteins, get yourself a food thermometer. Your food will also taste better if you cook it to the proper temperature. Let's go ahead and go back here. And I think it's looking right about where it's at the right consistency right now. I'll flip it back so you can see it. And then I'm just going to plate up a taco, and we can see, everybody knows what a taco looks like, but I'm going to do this anyway so you can see it. Okay, here's our finished product. It should have the consistency of what we see here. You know, not dry, but not like swimming in moisture or liquid. You see how it's got that nice color of, if you just got a color of like, you know, it's taco filling. If you just took a look at this and from a distance or even close up, you'd think it was ground chicken. I think we were having chicken tacos. So it's not going to taste like ground chicken, but I would think we're having chicken tacos. So I am now going to switch over. I'm going to put a little filling in here on my tortilla. I'm going to turn my burner off. That fan will run for a few minutes till it cools down. And I'll put my filling, and I'll show you a close-up on this when I switch cameras. Let me switch over. Okay, here we have our taco. Simply in the middle of the tortilla, you can do it in a lettuce leaf. I'm putting some queso on there, queso fresca. I'm doing some, I like to keep my condiments simple on these. You can put a dash of hot sauce on there if you want. I also like onions. And I'm going to put a sprinkle of onion on there. You can adjust this recipe, as I said, for whatever you want to do as far as flavoring goes. If you like something that's a little bit hotter, you can add the cayenne like I did today. If you like something that is maybe not quite as spicy, you can cut back on the spices that you put in there. That's no problem. And again, you can use this filling for taco filling, to have tacos. You can make baked enchiladas with it, whatever you care to do. It's perfectly fine, very versatile, high in protein, low in carbs. You get your nutritional yeast for more B vitamins, and I think it's a great dish. So that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Lindsay to field some questions, and she will ask me the questions that you have sent in, and we'll see if we can help you out with any answers to questions.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Bill. This was a really fun presentation, as I imagined it would be. So just a friendly reminder, we had a couple of questions of how do I get a hold of this recipe? So that is the handout that I referenced and you also referenced earlier in the presentation. You can download it right from the main toolbar right here, but if not, we're also going to be uploading it to our website along with the recording. So the handout is this recipe. So and it looks actually pretty simple to follow, and you did a fantastic demonstration. So I'm actually really excited about trying it out at home at myself.
Right.
So you obviously showed us the recipe for tempeh tacos, which is a soy-based option. Are there any other options here that are not soy-based? For example, what are the Beyond Meat products made of, for example? For those that are trying to maybe avoid a lot of soy.
Yeah, that's a good question. The Beyond Meat, I believe, and I'd have to go back and look at my notes, but I believe Beyond Meat is soy-based, but I think that the Impossible Burger is a pea protein. That's a pea protein, so that is not soy-based. So
Okay.
that would be definitely one option that you could try.
And do you have any recommendations for other non-soy based proteins?
I don't right now. What I would suggest though, what I do in this vein, I don't. I'm not saying they're not out there, but well, you have seitan. I guess seitan is wheat. That's wheat meat. So that would be one that you could try. Definitely not the tofu. But I also tell people to see if they can replace the protein. If they're looking to replace the protein, look at your vegetable charts and see which vegetables are high in protein. So, that's a good, what I do is I just Google high protein vegetables, and they'll give you an entire chart of vegetables to replace, you can replace the meat. Just make sure you're getting enough.
And where can people buy plant-based proteins? You had mentioned you bought this particular one from Whole Foods, but does every grocery store carry it, or is it more of a specialty, have you found?
I think that I think there are more and more grocery stores carrying them just from demand. People are getting more into their health with their food. They're realizing that there is a huge connection between diet and health, which, as you said in my intro, I strongly believe in. I can tell you that, of course, Whole Foods has the largest selection. They have everything under the sun when it comes to plant-based proteins. I've had luck by me down here. Mariano's has some. Jewel has some, but it'll depend on the size of the store. Even if it's one Jewel might have it, another Jewel might not. And I found that with my luck here. If it's and it depends on the neighborhood too. I mean, if it's a neighborhood where people they do from their market research, they know they're more into that type of food, they're going to carry it. So I could go, for example, over to Western Springs, and I'm sure there's a Jewel that, and that's my neighborhood down here, where they're going to carry a lot of those in the Jewel, where they might not over by me. So the best thing, of course, to do is just call ahead, you know, and just give them a call and say, what do you carry? What kind of plant-based proteins do you carry?
No, that's perfect. And I know you're giving some fantastic examples, which are actually perfect for me because we're here in the Chicago area. But for those that are joining us from outside of the state of Illinois, obviously everyone has a little bit of a different grocery store name and chains. So I think at the end of the day, most should have some, but there might be some limited availability depending on various stores and various locations. And to just ask when you get there, and hopefully we'll be able to locate some various options. So that's helpful.
Yeah, that's right. And I think you're right. I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, apologies to the folks that are from out of state. But yeah, it's a good point. And again, you know, either look when you go there or call ahead. But I think hopefully it's universal that they're more and more carrying these products for people to try.
And I also imagine in some of the bigger cities or the bigger stores, you're going to have a little bit more options. But Whole Foods also, I found no matter where you are, even if it's a small town and there's a Whole Foods, they really do have a lot of these fantastic options. So, so that's helpful.
Sure.
So some people are wondering, can we exchange plant-based products with any type of meat or fish, or have you found that there's some limitations when making that type of substitution?
I think what you have to do, you can to a degree, and this is where I'll throw in my comment that I always use when I teach at Ascension. I'm not a dietitian. However, you know, you can do your own investigating when you're doing this and take a look at the nutritionals on the products that you're buying. For example, you know, when I mentioned today that, you know, Tempeh, I like it that it has the nutritional yeast with it, which is, you know, oodles of B vitamins, which is fantastic, plus high protein, high fiber, low carbs. It's the perfect picture. So whatever you're looking at for a replacement, make sure that it kind of fits that mold. Because I've seen way too many people, and these are people that I know, my personal friends, that have decided to adopt a vegan lifestyle or a vegetarian lifestyle with no consideration as to exactly what they're going to actually eat, other than no meat, you know, and you cannot live on salads alone. So, you know, you do have to make sure that you do some research. And I think, you know, I think it's even, if you're really serious about it, I think it's worth maybe paying for a consult with a nutritionist that can really tie you in with exactly what you need to do to replace those essential nutrients.
Yeah, you know, I agree. I think we've done a lot of other programs in the past where we highlight just a good balance of overall nutrition and diet, and then identifying sometimes where each individual is deficient and trying to make up for it in the products that they consume, or for example, and maybe even in the vitamins that they take in. But obviously that's very individualized. You need to figure out what you're deficient in as opposed to what could be a generality. So, so that's really helpful. So thank you, Bill.
Sure.
So one question that just came in, which model of the Thermoworks did you show us today?
The Thermoworks, yeah, the Thermoworks, this is a, I believe it's called the MK4. If you look at their website, it's an MK4. There's two models that look like this. And I'll tell you the difference. There's an MK4 and then there's just a Thermopen. So Thermopen, the only difference besides price, Thermopen is a little bit cheaper. This is a little more expensive. This model here, this is the MK4. When you rotate it, the temperature will rotate as well. So, you know, like if you're sticking it in the oven, you know, and it won't rotate, you're looking at it sideways. And so that will rotate. Also, if you set it down and it has this stem out, it will automatically shut off, where the Thermopen won't shut off. So, but this is about $25 more expensive than the cheaper model. But they're both not only very easy to work with, but they're extremely accurate. You know, we did a tasting or a test case last week or 2 weeks ago for Butterball. I do work for Butterball, and we cooked 30 turkeys in a week, and we used exclusively Thermoworks products. And I calibrated the thermometers every morning before we would cook, and everything was perfectly right on every day. So they're great products. It's a good investment. They're not cheap, like I said. ThermoPen is about $75. The MK4 is around 100, I think. But
Okay.
if you take care of it, it'll last you forever. It'll last you forever.
Yeah, whoever's birthday is coming up, that could be a good option. Or the holiday season. Exactly. Great. And really the last question I think that a lot of people have, and maybe even myself included, is, you know, sometimes it's kind of scary to make a leap to try a plant-based protein. And, you know, especially if you don't have the motivation or the dietary need to do it, for some carnivores like me. What would you tell them? What would you say? You know, how would you get us to kind of make that leap and give it a try? Because I think sometimes people need kind of that encouragement to go out there and do some substitutions.
Yeah, that's a great question. And here's my answer. And I say this to people all the time, not only about making that leap to plant-based, but really just to try different foods.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, my big thing is to people, if I say, well, would you like this? And they say, no, I don't want it. And I'm like, why not? Well, I don't like it. And I'm like, well, when's the last time you tasted it? Well, I've never tasted it. I don't like the looks of it. You know, and so we can't judge a book by its cover. And I think it's so important to the biggest hurdle is open up your mind and say, hey, I want to try something new. You know, I just want to try something new and try it one time. I mean, if you do something like this recipe right here, you got $3.50 invested in a piece of tempeh and a few spices. You know, I mean, it's a minimal expense to try it, and I think that you'll find that you feel a little bit better. You know, I feel a little bit better if I don't eat meat. I don't feel as weighed down. And I'm like you. I'm a carnivore. You know, I like to grill and I like meat, but I like the quantities less and less as I get older. So, but the biggest thing is open your mind and just say, I'm going to try this. You know, because you know, I think in the end you'll feel better. But I mean, it's just great to try different things and vary your diet and know that you're doing something good for your body.
It makes me laugh because I feel like I do this on a daily basis with my 2 young children, who I encourage, just try it, just try one bite. You don't know if you don't like it until you try it yet. You know, it's easier said than done, I think. And sometimes us adults, especially as you probably even get older in age, you just kind of shut down and just do what you know. But I think that this is, that is good encouragement. And I think maybe we can all give it a try. It can't kill you, right?
It can't kill you, you know, and you bring up a good point. It's easier said than done, you know, I mean,
but I think that
too,
people, apologies for interrupting. I just was going to say, I think the people that are watching are interested in it. And I think your recipe looked fantastic. It looked very delicious. And if I was sitting in your kitchen right now, I would without hesitation try it. And I'm sure it would be delicious.
Yeah, thanks. I think that, you know, to me, what I like about this recipe and a lot of these recipes like this is that when I eat it, this sounds weird, but when I'll eat this taco when we get off camera, because it's not going to go to waste. You know, it's a mid-afternoon snack here.
Please don't.
You know, I'm going to eat it, but you know, the thing is, when I eat it, I actually, and it's how the mind works, I actually feel better already because I know it's got all that protein. You know, I know that it's healthy. I got the B vitamins. You're eating something that's really good for you. So, I mean, I equate it to, you know, gas is $6 a gallon here in the Chicago area almost. And I equate it to a car. You know, you wouldn't put gasoline that's watered down into your car because it would hurt your engine. When you're going to eat, make sure you eat something that's as good for you as possible. You have to enjoy the flavor too. So know that you're doing something good for your body.
And you only have one body. for your whole life. So
For your whole
that's perfect. That's perfect. It's a
Yeah,
great,
that's
it's also a great way to kind of end our Q&A session. But I did want to turn it over to you, Bill, just one last time to see if there's any kind of final thoughts or words of wisdom to our future chefs out there that are hopefully going to try out this recipe after this session. Anything you want to add before we conclude?
Yeah, yeah, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity. I think, again, have that open mind, try something. Cooking to me, as somebody who's been through culinary school, worked in restaurants, worked in all facets of food over the last 25 years and taught, cooking is not complicated. It's just a matter of getting down some basic skill sets. If you know how to saute this, you can saute anything. If you know how to sear something, you know how to sear anything. Have an open mind. And the great thing about this day and age, the internet is wide open with food. Whether it's YouTube recipes or YouTube demos, there's all kinds of information out there. So, embrace some new foods, try something different. And I always tell people, most importantly, make sure every day you eat your colors. And what I mean by eat your colors, make sure, especially this time of year, brightly colored vegetables and fruits. The better variety, the better it is for you.
That's great advice. That's great advice. Well, again, Chef Bill Nolan, thank you so much. This was a fantastic demonstration. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope that those that were in attendance and will also view this at a later time will find it helpful. I'm also encouraging everyone to let us all know if the recipe works for them. So hopefully we'll get some words of wisdom from everyone else who's able to try the recipe, and we'll be sure to pass along those notes over to you, Bill. So again, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who is still with us and watched this program. We hope you like it. We're going to send over a survey at the end. We hope you take it just to continue to allow us to improve our programs and our services. But we are so very thankful to all of our patients and everyone who joins us in these sessions. We hope that you will continue to support us in the future. And as always, if you need anything, anyone, just feel free to reach out. Our contact information is included in the screen below. And without further ado, I guess we'll end the session. And hopefully, to your point, Bill, we'll see you again in the near future.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day and happy eating.